wanted to talk about another interesting perfume-related fact or idea. And you may know that in some regions, for example in France and also in my country in Eastern Europe, it is quite popular to create a pomander, which is an orange, a round orange, and then you poke little holes in the orange peel and add some cloves. So you have this little spicy, spiced orange to place around either in trays or near Christmas tree for fragrance during Christmas time, during New Year's. And historically, actually, the fact behind this was quite interesting, as there were perfume necklaces and other perfume kind of charms or pendants that were called pomanders. And historically, during the Tudor period, this was quite trending, and it originated from the French pomme d'ambre, or translated to amber apple. And these first arrived to Europe in the from the Arab world in the 13th century approximately. And these little pomanders or little containers, typically created by different metal variations and also quite often studded with some jewels, were holding herbs, spices, oils, dried flowers, and some animal fats, for example musk, to firstly protect people against different diseases that were severe and significant in those days, for example plague, supposedly thinking by medieval doctors that plague could be prevented by using different herbal and other substances with good smell or good scent, as plague was a horribly smelly, decaying disease. And thus, in those days, medieval doctors had hoods infused with different spices and other materials. In the same way, pomanders were also carried around in some chains or added to the belt of the wearer. And typically, these are crafted either from gold or silver. Of course, it depends on the region and period, but sometimes they will also were used or worn as a ring format. And they had different shapes. The most common one was the round pomander shape, and either crucifixes, hearts, books, apples, or other symbols were placed on these. Some jewels and other engravings, studding, some shells and pearls were added. And also in the Tudor period, as I mentioned earlier, the waxy substance of fats, herbs, spices was also called pomade. And thinking at that period of time that it had medicinal properties as well as pleasant smell and scent masking properties, as those days bathing wasn't as common and as widely practiced as these days. For instance, Queen Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, Catherine de' Medici, and Cardinal Thomas Wolsey were one of the wearers for the specific pomander style necklaces and other charms. And it was a status symbol, of course, as musk and animal-derived ingredients, expensive fragrance oils were far too costly for a medieval peasant, but still these were even still remaining popular up till 18th century in the shape of buttons, rings, and filled with solid perfumes. So inflorage, or the French perfumer technique of infusion, either cold or hot, was used, creating solid perfumes with ambergris, cloves, cinnamon, musk, civet, and so forth. And also in Victorian period, these were also very, very popular, along with other memorabilia, for example, using the hair of the lovers or passing family members' hair locks encompassed in different brooches or necklaces, in the same way as pomanders were also popular, creating the solid perfume, and also worn either together with this kind of memorabilia or separately. And quite up till the Industrial Revolution, so with the creation of first factories and even more mass-produced goods and jewels, these are still remaining popular. And in the beginning of the 20th century, liquid perfumes replaced different solid perfumes used earlier. And of course, mass-produced perfumes arose, for example, Chanel scents, Chanel number 5 in early 1920s, Guerlain fragrances, and so forth. And this also meant that perfume mode changed quite significantly, and the liquid perfumes were higher in favor than the solid perfumes, but it doesn't mean that up until then solid perfumes were the only ones that existed, because even then many monarchs in their circles had perfumers or similar craftsmen that also created some liquid perfumes. And along the time, also many luxury brands, for example, Cartier, Tiffany's, also created different memorabilia and different style perfume lockets. And together with infusion and fragrance blending and decorative design in Art Deco period in 1930s, 20s, with the use of aldehydic and other synthetic fragrances and fragrance notes, it was still quite common to even use these kind of more luxury upper class style necklaces also per perfumes. And also perfume pendant necklaces were released by Nina Ricci, which is a perfume brand still popular these days, including the Air de Temps, and Givenchy, also by Yves Saint Laurent with their Opium, and Rive Gauche fragrances in 70s and 80s, and Gucci, Chanel, and Lancome with their Trésor perfume line in 90s. And also this means that even though, of course, during the Middle Age times, pomander necklaces and pendants were the most trending, you can still purchase some necklaces, and sometimes even either by niche perfume houses or by some luxury brands and jewelers. You can still purchase some of the newer necklaces and modern necklaces that are targeted for these days society. For example, Chloe in 2010 released solid perfume pendants. Marc Jacobs also created the limited edition perfume necklaces with cases. So these typically are lesser popularity-wise these days, but they still technically exist. And you can, of course, also order different custom-made and engraved pieces from different artists, for example, on Etsy. But at the same time, the historical background behind this is quite interesting. And for example, if you visit France during the Christmas season or early January, if you visit the Christmas market, you will see that they have these little pomander chains, or the chains of little mandarins, little oranges, and some other dried fruit infused with little studded spices, for example cloves, and hang on a little piece of chain that is something that you can hang around home for nicer scent during the colder season and festive season. So these still are pretty popular, and they were more accessible for more or less the middle class in comparison to upper class that back in the day historically could afford these jeweled pomander metallic cases with actual fragrances. But overall, when talking about this historical aspect, these were also historically made for religious keepsakes affiliated with church, and for example, Henry the Eighth and the Catherine of Aragon for the New Year's Day gift exchanged the pomander gold pendants. And thus, historically, this is something also that was quite trending by the monarchy. But that's all for today, and bye.